You guys, I just finished reading this book. I cannot remember the last time I cried while I was reading a book or after I read a book, but I cried like a baby. I've been wailing here in my room for the past 15 minutes and I cannot wait to discuss this book with you. Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I hope we're all keeping safe and we're all doing well. It's day 7 or no, it's day 12. I don't know what day of the week it is, and it's a hard time trying to keep up with the times and the days and the weeks, so please bear with me. I hope that you guys are doing well wherever you are in the world if you're seeing this, and I hope that you're keeping safe. I hope that you're taking care of your mental health and your physical health in these trying times, and I'm really confident that we will overcome this particular situation. Today I'm delighted to be reviewing this book. It's called Of Women and Frogs by Bisi Ajapon. I hope I'm pronouncing that well. I loved this beautiful book. Like I said earlier, I was crying when it ended. I was so emotional and I didn't even know where to start from. I was on the phone with my friend Sheon. Hi Sheon. And she had to be telling me, sorry, it's life. Yeah, it's the reality. And I'm like, no, why? This book was just so beautiful. So let's get into it. Bisi Ajapon is an African writer whose writings have appeared in the Washington Times, Daily Graphic, and Chicken Bones. I think that this is her first book. I haven't seen any other book by her, but I would check on that. But she's such a fascinating and amazing writer, and she spent her time between Ghana and America currently. So the book is purely fictional, and I've just been having such a great time reading African fiction, and I'm so happy that I stumbled on this genre, because ordinarily I would not read a whole lot of fiction written by African writers, and now look at me, that's almost the only thing that I read. I still have some self-help books to read this month, and I'm excited about that. So yeah, it's been really great. I'm going to read out the synopsis of the book. Essie is a feisty, half Nigerian girl growing up in Ghana with occasional visits to her maternal family in Lagos. When her curiosity about her body leads to a ginger in the vagina punishment from her stepmother, Essie begins to question the hypocrisy of the adults around her and the restrictions they place on girls. Moving between Ghana and Nigeria, this is a heartwarming story of a girl beating a path to self-actualization amidst political upheaval in Rawlins, Ghana, and strained relations between her ancestral countries. I'm going to try to give a summary of the plot without giving too many spoilers, because this book is just too beautiful and I want you guys to experience it for yourself. So like I said earlier, it's centered on a young girl. Her name is Essie. She's half Nigerian, half Ghanaian, and you know, the book explores her journey through life from when she's like 9 or 11 to when she's 21, and all the things that she encounters along the way, her challenges, her tasks, her curiosity, her discoveries about her body, about men, about friends, about school, about life in general. She has so many questions, and because she's a girl, there are a lot of things, you know, that are going on around her in the African setting. There's so much sexism, there's so much patriarchy, there's just so much going on that she cannot understand. And as a child, she questions why adults can tend to get away with some things that they say, don't do this, don't do this, and she watches them and she's like, oh, but you're doing that. So she had a lot of questions growing up. Even till when she was 21, she had quite a number of experiences, good and bad, with men, and basically it just culminated into her becoming who she was. Like, it contributed to her self-awareness, to her identity as who she was. And to be fair, like, the book chronicles her journey from that 9 maybe to 21, but so much happens in that short span. I mean, it's short in a relative way, but then so much happens, and Bisi Ajapon is just able to capture everything in a chronological order while mixing some political background and giving some exposure into Ghana at that time, because most of the book is set in Ghana. The book really reminds me of this Sefi Atta's Everything Good Will Come that I just recently reviewed. If you've not watched that, you can check it out. The book is set in Nigeria, Ghana, and Dakar. We see a lot of movement of Essie between Nigeria and Ghana because her mom is Nigerian and her mom's family is in Nigeria. Her dad's family is in Ghana. So we see a lot of that movement between Nigeria, Ghana, and Dakar. And like I said, I have not been to Ghana before, but it was just interesting to see how these places were described. I could relate a lot with the references to the Nigerian places like Victoria Island, Surulere, and maybe the mainland and some other places. But I think for the places that had to do with Ghana and Dakar, I couldn't really relate to them. But I remember that there were a lot of references in the book to that Ghana must go and all of that. So I know that that's not what I mean. That's the informal name, Ghana must go. But then because that was the period where Ghanaians were being chased out of Nigeria because same had happened some years ago, it was just interesting to see. I never really understood the background to why those things were happening, and the book sort of provided some nice little history lesson on that. I also loved how, although the book was set in 3 different places, you could see clearly the influence of the external environment in Essie's life. So in Nigeria, it had to do with her mom's family and the influences and the culture and everything that they had instilled in her, and then on her dad's side, the effect that it also had with her, even in Dakar, where she found herself and she suddenly felt free for the first time in so many years, where she was exploring her freedom, she was exploring her identity and her self-awareness. You could just see how those different places had different effects in her life, because at the end of the day, I guess people say we're sort of the sum of our external environment and where we find ourselves. So I guess that's why some people are always encouraged to travel, so that we can learn new cultures and just interact with people, so that we don't think that our own culture and our own way of living is the primary supreme way. Because you go somewhere and you find out that nobody knows about you or where you come from, or they've never heard about your continent to even start with. It sort of gives you that humbling factor, and it plays a major role sometimes in how we see life. Let's talk about the author's use of imagery. I have no complaints whatsoever here. I'm not even going to waste time here. The author did a great job in terms of the use of imagery. The Ghana or the Dakar or all these places that I've not been to, I could just imagine them. Like my visuals were actually satisfied with the way the author used imagery to explore and give life to these places. So even if you've not been to any of the places where the book was set, even the outskirts of Accra and some other places that I've never really heard of, I know that I had been there just by reading this book, even if I've not been there. So I give it A1 for the use of imagery. I think she did a fantastic job. The writing style, wow, I was mad blown away by the writing style. Like I said, it reminded me so much of Sefi Atta's Everything Good Will Come, because the book starts off when Essie is 9 or 11, I always keep on forgetting, and then it goes to when she's 21. The writing style was so, from when she was 9, from the beginning of the book to the end of the book, if you just pick up the last couple of pages and you pick up the first couple of pages, they are worlds apart. She did a phenomenal job in expressing the words of a 9-year-old or an 11-year-old. She did a phenomenal, even when she was 14, when she was 16, when she was 18, she did such a great job. She used the first person narrative and the first person point of view, so it was written in Essie's voice, so you were literally in her head hearing her thoughts. You understood why she reacted the way she reacted to certain things. You understood all her curiosities, her discoveries. It's like you were literally growing with her, be it when she was discovering herself as a woman, discovering her period, discovering sex, discovering people of the opposite sex, even with friends and things. Everything, you could see that the language that was used to express was that of a 9-year-old maybe to a 14-year-old. So it was just so amazing to see. I really, really admired that. I think another thing that I really liked about the author's writing style was the fact that I was reading the book and I got halfway before I even knew when it was set. I knew that there were a lot of things going on in the book that didn't really allude to the fact that the book was set in the 2000s or in recent times, but I couldn't place my finger on it, because even when they would mention some of the heads of state in Ghana, then I didn't really know them. So I didn't know, oh, what year was this book set in, what year is Essie 9 years old or 14 years old. But I think there was a part where it mentioned, oh, June 1979. I'm like, aha, so it has to be around this period. I love the way she was also able to just slip it in. Like, she'll just be like, I'm 14. Maybe somebody will ask, how old are you? And then she'll go, I'm 14. And then you're like, ah, okay, she has now grown to she's 14. Because you're just reading and following somebody's life. But the person is not telling you, oh, now I'm 14 years old, oh, now I'm 15. It's just sort of slipped into paragraphs. Like, even when she was 21, it was just so lovely. I liked it. I will return to Ghana and graduate from the university, not with 1 but 2 degrees, French and Spanish. Wait. I think I read, wait a minute. BC Japan holds degrees in French and Spanish. Okay. Could it be that the book was somewhat about her? Don't mind me. It thrills me to laugh in the wind and let the sounds fall where they may. Yes, for so long I've lived inward, far from the little spirited girl I used to be. Now I've rejoined her, except I'm 21 and stronger. I'll never again wish for a frog to turn me into a man. I'll light up my womanhood. I'll help my sisters. I'll help other women ignite their fires, blaze their paths through life, and leave behind embers to warm those who will come after them. While I was reading the book, I know that there were some themes that jumped out at me which were so strong. Let me start with the one that made me cry. The realism of life, the interplaying factors of love, of life, and just how real this book was. It just made me think of how in life things don't always go the way we plan. They're usually like setbacks, they're challenges. We make a lot of mistakes. Sometimes those mistakes we end up regretting, sometimes we don't. Life goes on. But it was just so crazy to see how real this book was. This is a girl who from 9 till 21, she didn't have a mom present in her life. She had to figure out so much on her own. She had to explore so much, from even the time when she was in boarding house to when she went to university. A lot of things that she figured out about her body, about herself, about men, about life. She literally figured it out on her own. All she had was her dad yelling at her every time about how, you know, a man is a woman's glory, a woman is nothing without a man, and so on and so forth. And she had to explore all of this by herself. But I think that what I really loved was the fact that this book did not give some sort of fairy tale ending. The reality was that, hey, look, I mean, things don't always go the way you expect them to go. We always keep on moving forward in life. So I really love the realism that was exhibited in this book. Also, in terms of time, it was just so beautiful, because Essie had different priorities when she was 9, trying to not turn into a man by not getting frogs to touch her, to growing up to 14 or 12 thereabouts, mixing up with other girls, exploring her body. The first time she got her period, she was freaking out. She thought that was God that was punishing her. She's going to die. It was just so funny. Like, I actually had a good laugh while I read this book, just seeing the mind of a 9-year-old or 11-year-old too, when she's like 15 or 16, how she processes life and all. And you could see her priorities changing at different angles. So I loved how the theme of time was just effortlessly explored. There was a strong theme of sexism in this book. Like, some pages I will read in the book and I'll be like, excuse me, what? Like, excuse you? But hey, it is what it is, and that was the reality of it. These things still exist in our African communities today, where a lot of people still discriminate against women and feel like, I better keep quiet, you're a woman, what do you know? You know, and for Essie, while she was young, a lot of people say, you're young, what do you know? You're young, you don't understand. She still had to battle with, you're a woman, as she grew older. You're a woman, what do you know? Her father constantly said that thing of, a man is a woman's glory. And I'm like, he even said, you are nothing without a man. And yes, while these things are like, why would he say that? This one, that one, these are things that actually still happen in our African society today, in Nigeria, be it Ghana, wherever, and people are still head on strong in their cultural beliefs that yes, so a woman is nothing. So you can do everything in the world, get all your degrees, work hard, do the most, but you are nothing if you don't have a man. There was a part where the person that she got engaged to was telling her, oh, these are the plans that I have. I want you to come back to, was it Ghana or Nigeria? I can't even remember. I'm not asking you, I'm telling you. And I'm like, well, sorry, oh. And she just laughed at me. And that's exactly how I felt. I just laughed because I'm like, this is somebody who is in the university. He wanted her to withdraw from the university where she was really smart and she was going to get a degree because because he wanted to be an actor, saying he's going to go to Hollywood and become the next Eddie Murphy. Somebody that couldn't even feed himself. I don't even want to get into this, but it's just so crazy because these things still happen. I think the saddest part of all of these things is the fact that as women too, we also find ourselves believing these things sometimes. Like you can strive to do everything, you can be pursuing your dreams, you can, but maybe because of something that people around you have said, be it all these uncles and aunties that are not related to you, but the way they keep on making you feel like, oh, you're not enough, or you're not enough, you're not complete, there's still something missing with every other thing that you've achieved just because you're not married or because you don't have a man. So imagine hearing that constantly. At some point your subconscious will probably believe it. And you know, I think some of Essie's sisters had actually believed it, and they just said, you know what, this is my life. So yes, it was a fictional book, and yes, it was entertaining. I laughed. There were a lot of instances that I laughed just looking at the comedic humor of a 9-year-old or 11-year-old, 14-year-old, 16-year-old girl who, I mean, at that point you're also naive, you don't really know so much and things like that. And it was entertaining, yes, but there were so many deep lessons that I learned. I was so emotional at the end because of how real this book ended. There was no fairy tale, and I'm like, wow. And she had been through so much, and she didn't still, yeah, let me not say too much. Wow. Yeah, it was just so, this life, at the end of the day, look, like every day is a blessing, and we learn our lessons, we continue to move on, and life goes on. That's just the truth. Imagine at 21 having the kind of experiences that this girl had been through, and then, yeah. Okay, I'm going to start crying again, but this book was an amazing read. Man, I can't remember the last time I cried because I was reading a book. I honestly can, or maybe it was when I read Daughters Who Walk This Path by Yejide Kilanko. But this book was, I recommend it to anyone who is interested in reading African fiction. If you're looking for something great to read, I can't even say more. If you're looking for something great to read, hey, this is the book for you. What do I rate a book that made me cry, laugh, excited, that made me learn, that taught me a lot? A strong 9.7 over 10. Amazing writing, plot delivery, characterization, writing style, use of imagery. If you've read it, let me know, leave a comment, let me know what you thought about it. If you haven't and you intend to do, please let me know as well. Thank you guys for watching this book review. If you've not done so, please hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye. And share the link to all the the author was also thank you guys so much for